Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Last night we saw the Houston Rockets get eliminated by the Lakers. Lakers move on to the Western Conference Finals, and the Rockets leave the bubble. So there's a lot to talk about there, and I also haven't talked about the Game 7 of the Celtics Raptors series either. So we're just diving in on the teams that got eliminated today. So lots to talk about, and let's get right into it by talking about Houston. And in this series, Harden just didn't do enough. He's a top 10 player in the NBA, top 6, I'd say. And he was not able to carry this team to the heights that they're capable of reaching. And obviously, a big part in that was the Danielle House situation with him not being able to play because of whatever shenanigans he became involved in, along with the just whole Russ Westbrook thing. But I really didn't think Westbrook was that bad in this series outside of Game 2. Obviously, in Game 2, he was atrocious, and if he is anywhere near respectable, they probably win that game. But Harden just effort wise and all of that just didn't look all that good to me. So he just has this trend of disappearing in the playoffs, and I feel like that Game 5 is going to end up being a real mark on his record because 2 for 11 from the field. Obviously, he shot 19 free throws, but 2 for 11, those are not superstar stats. So they needed more from Harden. He wasn't able to give it to him. They needed him to make adjustments. I mean, he's just so predictable. Like, when he comes down the court, you know that he's going to do one of two things. He's going to shoot a three, or he's going to go to the rim. There's no mid-range. And like the Spurs did a couple of years ago where in the pick and roll against Harden, they just hard dropped. Once he was run off the three-point line, they just hard dropped because they knew he wasn't going to take that mid-range jumper. He's just so predictable, and he needs to start taking mid-rangers. I think that this is the point where we've seen that the three and the inside the paint shot are efficient. Great. Efficient shots. Woohoo! Rockets basketball. Stat-wise. What we want to do. Well, it's not working. So you got to make adjustments. And the coaching staff and this team in general just has not shown the ability to make those adjustments. As a matter of fact, you could make the argument that the person who's made the most adjustments is the general manager because this team's wheeling and dealing everybody but Harden every single offseason. So, yeah, there's a lot to dissect with this team, and I'll get into a lot more of that in my offseason preview for the Rockets. But like PJ Tucker, Robert Covington, those guys are not able to attack off the dribble. Really, this team off the dribble, you've got Harden, Westbrook, and to some extent Eric Gordon. But Eric Gordon had some good games statistically, but in this series, he just did not look like a third option to me. And I don't think anyone's going to debate that he's a third option. So they're not going to be able to get rid of him. He's on a really bad contract. So the same with Westbrook. I mean, this team's just in a really, really weird spot. A good thing for them in this series was Jeff Green played pretty well, I thought. Obviously, he was forced to step out of his role and do some different things than he usually would do because of the fact that there was no Daniel House and he was pretty much the sixth man for this team. But he played well, so that's a positive takeaway. And really, I just give major props to Frank Vogel because in Game 1, they were running the trap at Harden right away, and Harden was using that to find open three-point shooters, and they were knocking them down, and the Rockets ended up winning that one pretty easily. And after that, I was like, wow, okay, I think Houston's going to win this series. Before I said Lakers in 6, prior to the series. So I was pretty close on this one, actually. After it's all over, Lakers in 5. I said Lakers in 6. And I was like, wow, okay. Houston's going to win this series. They looked so good. So yeah, recency bias, I overreacted. And they obviously did not win the series. Westbrook in game 2 really, really hurt them. Like I said, I did not think Westbrook was particularly terrible in this series, but his game 2 performance, I mean, that was their chance to go up 2-0. And if they go up 2-0, I really don't see them losing this series. But the fact that they were unable to win that game kind of demoralized them. Game 3 didn't go well, and then game 4 they just stopped giving effort. PJ Tucker, Robert Covington, those guys didn't look like they wanted to win. They got out-rebounded like 59-20 or something like that. Those weren't the exact numbers, but you just could see that those guys just weren't giving it their all. And that all comes back to their leader in Harden, who didn't look like he was giving it his all. I think D'Antoni has got to go. Just doesn't seem to be. He's never gotten it done for them. And obviously in 2018, you could argue that without Chris Paul's injury, they would have made it to and probably won the finals. But woulda, shoulda, coulda. Ifs and buts. Isn't there some kind of saying like ifs and buts are whatever? You get the point. The Rockets had a good chance of winning the championship that season. It was probably their best shot, but it didn't happen. So, what do they do now? That's the question. I think D'Antoni's got to go. That's the first step. And then try to get some good role players. I don't know that small ball is sustained. I think small ball is good. I really like the small ball. It makes them very fun to watch, but I don't know that they can do it for an entire 7-game series. So I think they have to have a capable starter-level center on their roster, at least, just to make them a bit less predictable in the playoffs and gives them the ability to make more adjustments. Because we did not see a whole lot of adjustments in this series. Getting over to the Raptors-Celtics, Pascal Siakam just didn't get it done, and it's the ball handling. Everybody's saying it. I agree. He just doesn't have a good enough handle. He doesn't have enough go-to moves that he's really comfortable doing. Obviously, that spin move is pretty lethal, but outside of that, there's not a whole lot that he does. So that's the next jump for him. He's made jumps every season so far, and that's the next place where he can improve. So it all comes down to whether or not he does it or not, and it'll be interesting to see. Lowry didn't have his best game either. Obviously, he played great defense, but shooting the ball, the shots just weren't falling for him. And the fact that him and Siakam both had tough games, and they still nearly beat the Celtics is very, very impressive to me. Van Vliet hit some huge shots for them in that game. Some huge momentum swingers. As I like to talk about a lot, momentum is just so important in the game of basketball, and Van Vliet knows when he's gotta get a shot. And there were times in the series where they didn't go down, but in Game 7, he was the one keeping them in it with those huge shots. So big props to him. Ibaka had a great game scoring the ball as well. I think that's something they could have gone to a bit more even, just trying to get Serge post-ups and screen and rolls and screen and pops, because he was probably their best form of offense in that game. OG Anunoby played very good defense, but Tatum really just stepped it up. Tatum looked like a superstar, and this guy's ready. This Eastern Conference Finals matchup, I have a video coming out later this week about it, but I'm really, really excited to see what Tatum is able to do against Miami, and I think it's going to be a really fun series. Jaylen Brown had a pretty good game. I don't remember his stats exactly, but he definitely played well, hit a bunch of shots, played much better than he had the rest of the series. Marcus Smart was amazing. This was the triple-double game. He had a triple-double. I think Tatum was super close to a triple-double. And this is just where we saw how much Marcus Smart affects winning. He's just plays so hard. He hit some huge shots. Is a really, really underrated playmaker. This guy's a winner. He's a gamer. You know what you're going to get from Marcus Smart. Obviously, the flopping stuff gets on a lot of people's nerves, but it just shows how bad he wants to win and what he's willing to do to win. He puts his body on the line all the time. Just a special, special player who just really wants to win. You could tell they missed Gordon Hayward because sometimes the shot making wasn't there. Obviously, when you got Shemi Ojeleye and Grant Williams playing the wing minutes off the bench, they missed Gordon, and obviously I thought that they were going to miss him even more because I picked the Raptors to win this series, largely because Gordon Hayward was out. Before the postseason started, I picked the Celtics to win this series, but after it started, and we saw the Hayward injury in the Sixers series, that led me to make the prediction prior to the beginning of the Celtics-Raptors series that the Raptors would win in 7 games. But I ended up being wrong because Tatum and Brown and in the first 5 games, Walker were all able to step up their scoring enough to lead this team to victory, and it was very impressive. Obviously, Kemba got shut down a little bit, but he had 2 spectacular defenders guarding him at the point of attack in Kyle Lowry and Fred VanVleet. So it was a tough matchup for him, and the fact that he played as well as he did in the first 5 games was really impressive to me. This guy is advancing far further in the playoffs than he ever had in the rest of his NBA career, and it's going to be fun to see what he can do moving forward because he's a really special player, and I can't wait to see what he is able to do to try to get his team to the NBA Finals. Grant Williams gave them some huge minutes, especially that stretch in the fourth quarter where Tice was in foul trouble and eventually fouled out. I don't even think that Grant played in the first 3 quarters, but in the fourth quarter against that small ball lineup, he was the matchup that Brad Stevens liked, and he played, especially on that last possession against VanVleet, he played spectacular defense. So the Celtics team is just full of winners. They're full of guys that are really, really good defenders, and it's going to be a great series for them against Miami. With the Raptors, I just think this is a really great team. If they would have had Marc Gasol, he looked off in this series. And even in the first round against the Nets, he looked like a shell of the Marc Gasol that we have all seen in the past. And if they had him playing like he was last year, I do think that they probably win this series. So, yeah, it was a great series. I'm so happy that I was able to enjoy this series as much as I did. 2 great coaches, 2 great teams, and I'm sure that we'll see a couple more playoff matchups between these 2 cores moving forward. Some more Pascal Siakam versus Jason Tatum matchups, and I can't wait. After this series especially, it was really fun. Obviously, Rockets Lakers to a lesser extent after Frank Vogel made that spectacular adjustment to not trap Harden at the beginning of the possession, trap him once the shot clock got a little lower, and it just killed the Rockets. So kudos to Frank Vogel for helping move his team forward and being a much better coach than I thought he could be. Great job by the Celtics, and the Raptors had a great season. They should be very proud of where they came after losing their best player and their finals MVP. And I also think that the Rockets need to get better. And there's some areas that they can improve in. The predictability, the adjustments. But great season from the Raptors. Maybe not so much from the Rockets. Thanks for watching. Leave a like. Leave a comment on what your thoughts are on the Rockets and Raptors, the 2 R teams. And subscribe if you're enjoying my content. I'm posting videos pretty much every day. I think that's it for me, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for watching, and we will see you all again very soon.